Whenever you say the word.
How are we doing time-wise? It's time now. I'm going to get my phone out just to make sure I
I'm
don't
going to put to the
ramble on. Yeah, go on.
I like.
Yeah, every time you have it from
From that point, like it doesn't skip backwards. It's
Mine starts and it's like immediately a conversation.
we don't find that out until halfway through. There we go.
Okay, I think we should start. Hi everyone. Lovely to see you. This is the second event now this autumn within the autumn reading series for the Centre for Poetry and Poetics. I better put this on. And it's a really lovely a moment to be able to welcome Jeff Hilson tonight, who will be the solo reader for the whole duration of the time we've got assigned for this evening. So I think it will be about, I don't know what, 45 minutes, 50, 60, we'll see. But there won't be any stopping, there won't be any breaks. This is meant to be a threat if you know Jeff's word, but anyway, we'll see. I deliberately made the title for this event almost casually light, but actually it was deliberate and intentionally misleading just to get you here. Even though it's an hour with Hilson, it's gonna be
Hilson's whole hour.
Very likely rather intense. Right. So the good thing about Jeff's reading is people come who know their work. But if by any chance you don't, here's a little introduction to Jeff's work. Jeff Hilson is a poet, critic, editor, and teacher. He's written 5 books of poetry, Stretches, that was a 2006 reality street book, Bird in 2009 by Landfill, in the Assarts by Veer, it came out in 2010, the famous or infamous Latanoprost Variations by Boiler House in 2017, and I guess one of the most recent ones is Organ Music. That was a Creator Press 2020 collection. Jeff Hilson edited the reality street book of Sonnets, published in 2008 by Reality Street and with David Grundy. He edited a special issue of the British and Irish Journal of Innovative Poetry on the work late Sean Bonney, which came out in the autumn 2020. Hilson Hilson, a book of responses to Jeff's own writing by his peers, edited by Richard Parker, is still available from Creator Press. It is a beautiful book. Jeff also runs Crossing the Line poetry reading series in London with the poet with Iris Colomb. So it seems to be far, but if you happen to be in London, is it once a month and normally on a Sunday?
Yeah.
Once a month, normally on a Sunday. It is something that is definitely worth going. Until recently, he taught creative writing at the University of Roehampton. Okay, so let's have this beautiful hour with Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Aggie. I've been instructed to indulge myself. So what I thought I'd do is kind of read through kind of chronologically from some older material to some of the most recent stuff. So thank you for indulging me. Thank you for asking me to indulge myself. So I'll start with, this is a book that came out, pamphlet, chapbook, came out in 2000 from Harry Gelonas's Form Books. And it's a little thing called A Grass's Primer. And they're all short poems, objectivist inspired, about grasses. Fescue, it from festuca, worth a straw and a rush to a twig. In other words, pretty shady. Twitch is too quick. Gather and destroy. Scutch and scotch it. Quack will kill itself. Marram, useful marram. Marram by the sea. Sea marram next to Mara. Darnel, rare darnel. Weed among corn. Error, darn error. Brome is to broom, as I think it is great broom on wasteland. Melix, elliptic, common, uncommon. I, you, he, she, it gathers in the land of song and honey. Quail is a quaking from breeze on meadow and maidenhair, must be cut for a soft verge. A grain of barley, again, a game of barley. Wood and wall will alter this culture. A suffix of fox pin a tail on a plant, a lope curus, all of a serious pest. A green can be bent, all could be lawn for miles and miles. Place hedge by sedge, without design, play false, hard, dead.
So, it's because you're too tall. You're not in the camera.
Not in the shot. A few poems from a book which came out in 2007 or 9. But this is a little pamphlet that Alan Halsey and Geraldine Monk put out in 2005. 5 poems from Bird, little prose poems about birds on the so-called British list, as if there could be such a thing. And you'll notice they all have the constraint was that each bird that made it into this little book had a repeated Latin binomial. There were like 60, no, that's another book. There were about 30 of them, I can't remember. There were enough of them to make a little book anyway. This is the first one. Troglodytes, troglodytes, the wren. Must work without the wren, their shiny coats there, their fat small hands. They once were kind. Once they all faced the same way and sang. Once. Doubtful bird you've seen. The word that the wren said, shoes. A wren doesn't cost any money. There, dipping in Northern Europe. The story of its longer wings from England. Must buy ham. This will not be like much either. Under the tractor, I shoved it in her hard, but each take was spoiled by the king wren. Tit parties in winter, small, loose parties erupting westward, sometimes high up. Golden England. Down and down Newington butts, caught moths with the smaller birds, again, wren-like. Wren as host, magpie as host, above whose clashing hands, businesslike, now a wren costs a few pence. Apus, apus, the swift. Easily told around the houses, and they went this way looking like quick and brown, the same as before, only going to a roding valley, there to feel for the wrong bee. A fish carried forward in the hand to soothe. There in time to motley, the head to lead to the circle. They fell down rhyming, lightly come, like a man at things in a wood. A poetry ring, recent and wet. The point is outside and in, though scarcely so, like scarcely weeping or scarcely so. From town to form, from place to position, or grazing on each other, they work the suburb to a thin. Puffiness, puffiness, the Manx shearwater. Used to stitch back her boat of no record, and she got the French inches late. When we gave up reading for scraping, her own precious boat, now dansande merry, but she never rode it in nowhere. No legs, so threw her some after. Now she come before the mackerel. She feathered, she says, to track the fall law, so what you can pick up. A single word, it is present day, not curves, knots, the end. My rare men, soldiers, sailors, the king one, the lean and poor. Her boring opposites. She needs a definitely operator and some new rounds, some new names. Not ring, not Cortina. Phoenicurus, phoenicurus, the redstart. It's May, and I'm found out turned into a pie. Fallen from a pipe into a pie. It's as easy as pieces when you are unimportant, annoying to be fallen off again into the pink. Unstressed me, I'm something none. Woke too to a tipsy dance, feathers on in the wall of the wall. It's difficult to poem today. to force the figure of the berry in the late bee-hole, so worn in the movement, so worn in the tipsy dance. You're dancing. Why? You're asking. Why, this is all a right error. Mine start, they say, is mine end. But that's a sidelong, a half a face on the O. Rare, ripe, he is shaped and heavy into it, like rolling over the brake path. Vanellus, vanellus, a lapwing. Oh, little fan, I wouldn't start, but start. Who to the owl, thou, O owl? His reply, you are half a fish, head and back and mute. I am a dish here. Only my silver threads is coming on. They do so. I'm afraid of the bones of fish. His reply, oh, Jones. His reply, that I run with a shell through the streets. His reply, weep, weep. His reply, look how I am the same as pussy. His reply, this went on for hours and on the wing too. Broken he is, see, a round talker, all faint, drawing you off. Give him the shakes. Ask him about the leads, about the shakes. He never heard our conference. Okay, some poems from in the Assarts, which Aggie mentioned earlier, which came out from Veer books in 2010. These are all sonnets, very loosely. And it's got a few epigraphs. An Assart is a piece of forest land, kind of converted into arable land by kind of grubbing up the trees, and a lot of the words in here come from old kind of forest lore, L-O-R-E and L-A-W. I'll just read the three epigraphs. The first is from the American poet John Wheelwright, who wrote some fantastic sonnets. When with habitual knack in versifying or with superstitious shunning of all but conventional thoughts or notions, a poet comes across with perfect sonnet after perfect sonnet for any length of time, a sonnet sequence is a bore. So that was one of my guiding principles. The second is from Ted Berrigan. He says, weeds I don't mind much, although I actually prefer pavements and sidewalks. Well, I like the countryside too, but there are a lot of bugs in it, I must say. And the third is from Thomas Wyatt. I think this is a misquote. Farewell, love, and all thy lawns forever. Number one. And with my whoso list, as if we are walking in a Norman forest. Sometimes I think we all need a little forest glossary so that game might be driven towards us. They fled with my dole. Hey, that's my share of the countryside. Give them thy finger in the Forêt de Nancy. Into the countryside with my dole, or let them roam on lonely moats. A vast moat beautifies where she is going. Is where she is going far? Number 12. So long, mister, I'd done my sums and I need no more ploughs. Once one is the only one I know, a man I flee from. He adds up to this and this. X and Y I flee from. What they did, I don't have to be in the Middle Ages. A picnic is this plus this. to put in it a stolen trout. My favourite place is to be in the middle of the road. Oi, if I say you, it is not enough, mister. I done my sums and I need more plums. Someone once wrote a piece about this and said that X and Y was possibly a reference to the Coldplay album. X and Y I flee from. I honestly can't remember.
What is it a reference to?
I can't remember.
Awesome.
Oh, it could be. Olsen or Coldplay. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Parallels.
16. My moat has an elaborate diver. Not so. He rises and sinks just like a boat, which is full of coney holes I made, by being so fly. I filled it up with new so much so my moat is mentioned in Milton's odes. Now my moat is dry. Now my moat is dry, my diver is my driver. He drives me to country shows, not in a bateau where we look at deer, but being so shy, I return always without a doe. No, my boat's so full of holes because my boat's so full of moles. 23. Henry VIII, I love, an ordinary working king, like I love synecdoche, i.e. the crown or motor, except for Edward II and his ferocious statues. Divorced, beheaded, died, it goes unlike the fiesta in the hedgerow. Alas, I, the Richard one, Feb 14, everyone knows these didn't work either. Divorced, beheaded, died, one after another. They all go like this who remember, reader, Henry's wives. 25. I fucking love you months. January and February happily together, March and April on their own, and the smaller ones, May, June, and obvious July. August is very rare. We have to ask what happened to August in September and delicately. October, there is nothing to be said for, which like all fashions changes. Months can be used to remember, like November, November. I fucking love you, Sonnets. 27. Lichen hung, I come to you in hillbilly armor. Hick and nunk, it's massive, my invasion front with white trash moats. I mean my geographic tongue. It's called a love wave and travels slowly ahead of leaky hearts. He fixes atmospheric. He travels with a typical owl. Think of the man I fancy. I can't get off his Norman face and glow in the dark arms coming to me in the terrible, terrible Assarts. 28. Those tables. Did I say Norman? I meant normal conquest. Oh, yes, they do, right on my wall, whose wall is large and spacious. Imogen, thy large wall, look at me in my love suit. I filled it full of conquest. All men are bad or something for nothing. Once one is one. 29. Noli me tangere, for Nancy's I am. This is not a book of Nancy, but if Nancy was a forest, I woke up halfway through her and began on my obscure self. If I was a forest, I'd have all the king's men in me, all the queens. If I was a crossbow man, if Nancy was a crossbow man, if Nancy was a crossbow man, if Nancy was a sonnet firing N-rays at the Battle of Nancy, if I was a repeating crossbow man, si j'étais un cranequinier. 30, I lost my way in a New York school way and did simply anything by phone. Hi, Jimmy, do something, you great charming girl on great neck. I said, sorry, I chopped off all your horse, Jimmy died to say. And John kissed Jimmy and Jim kissed Johnny. And if I was a crossbow man, I'd say to everyone, just bye. 31, repeat, I'm not a crossbow man, not with these arms. I blunder on, oh poesy, I couldn't put it together better as well as I, Thomas Wyatt. The spy who loved me is masturbating with the ruler. A-B-B-A, A-B-B-A, oh Anne Boleyn, I'm straight and half as good as you and quite the way you do. 32, when I grow up, I want to be I, Thomas Wyatt, and hang around the stately homes of England. I'm not in this dance. The little necks of England, slipped and crowned. So long, Anne Boleyn, you spoiled my holiday theory of value. How to explain the flowers to I, Thomas Wyatt, when I was rescued by her falling head on my moustache? Oh, Anne Boleyn, was there room in the room that you roomed in? 33, I loved to you, oh Anne Boleyn. Instead of Thomas Wyatt, I wrote your falling name on my mistake. You in very small trunks, you in dark green, you in tough, smooth tops. Since I went to pieces, alas, my American tats were this bad. When I got off with your head, when I was Sir Thomas Wyatt, yes, no, don't know why I spent my life in wood. These hands made the best French boats. These hands make the best English bats. 34. When I was Sir Thomas Wyatt, and I dreamed I shot arrows in my Anne Boleyn bra. She was just being herself by my slow-grown self bow. I am Sir Thomas Wyatt, I said. We were both idiots. And I live in a tent on the field of the cloth of gold. I shot arrows in a minute. She died on a shiny turret. Oh, Anne Boleyn, I made your head into an Italian sonnet. Tremendous on the face is you. She loves to wear a lame bra too. 53. Not you again, Jeremy Irons. Look at my lady swimming through the awkwardly contrived opening. The British actor Jeremy Irons is trying on her false hair. I'm the French lieutenant's woman. No, I'm the French lieutenant's woman. No, I'm the French lieutenant's woman, etc., etc. I don't know how many times I curtsied. He's not even the fucking king. Love died between me and the army. In her long, loose sleeves, he drowned, displaying all the elegance of sound. '68. In Veronica Forrest Thompson, where is the British Embassy? I love you. I did O-level Latin, or another is not dead. I hate outdoor game. Also in bed, go away. Everything is green. It is all over. Surrey, of course, is dead. She is following me everywhere to nearly balls in a rich ark that hath nothing else to do. This is a bonny wood. He's a steady influence. Not of wood, only thus divers renew their falls. Okay, moving on. Three poems from Latanoprost Variations, which is this nice green, this kind of hospital green book, which came out from Boiler House Press in 2017. I mean, all the poems in this book really are they're kind of glorified list poems. I wrote something about them in my 300-word ref statement. And I can't remember what I wrote now, but anyway, the first one I'm going to do is a ritual poem against the sea, which, I mean, is a kind of a list of boats. But it's a bit more than that. The problem is I'm besieged by galleons. Naturally, nobody welcomes them, the galleons, which interfere with normal life. The attack submarine, too, is difficult to ignore. Often, I go to great lengths to avoid it. The hospital ship I invariably return to. Like the Gundelau, it is arranged just right, unlike the trimaran, which is senseless and irrational. Repeatedly, I check the hydrogen tanker. The problem is I am besieged by it, touching it like the ferry, though the ferry and the galleon are not related. Washing the ferry again and again, the armed yacht is difficult to ignore. Invariably, I return to the floating restaurant. Reading the menu, nobody welcomes it, the floating restaurant. Reading the menu until it is clean like a terrible, terrible paddle steamer. Basically, the ocean liner is no good, and I'm besieged by it, touching the banisters on its staircases. Invariably, I return to the banisters and the door handles. The men of war, too, are difficult to ignore. Shaking hands with them does not mean they are not men of war, unlike the icebreaker, which is just right, unlike the patrol boat, which is just right, unlike the bulk carrier, which is just right. Nobody welcomes the men of war, which are not inherently enjoyable. The problem is I am besieged by them, counting them and saying their names out loud like Beauchamp Duff or Clive of India and shaking hands. The problem is I'm late for work on the clipper ship, which also is contaminated. Washing the ferry again and again, invariably I return to it, turning the lights of the lake freighter on and off. Invariably, I return to the battle cruiser, which is difficult to ignore. Think about the battle cruisers you've been on. Clearing your throat on HMS Invincible. Clearing your throat on HMS Indomitable. Clearing your throat on HMS Inflexible. The problem is I am besieged by them. Naturally, nobody welcomes the East Indiaman, which is easier to face than the Cromer Stephen. Invariably, I'm careless on the Clyde Puffer as I'm careless on the Durham boat, trying not to think about them, nor the hermaphrodite brig. Men and women equally leaving the windows open and going to great lengths to avoid the telephones, which interferes with normal life. Showering repeatedly on boarding the Barca Longa, going up and down the gangway of the very large ore carrier over and over and leaving the doors open. This is difficult to ignore, like the minesweeper. Naturally, nobody welcomes the minesweeper, which cannot be stopped. Touching it at work or at university, the problem is I am besieged by it. Invariably returning to the flotel whenever possible, invariably returning to the flotel for complete recovery, the flotel which is difficult to ignore, unlike the showboat which is perfectly safe, though deep down I want the flotel to pull away. Repeatedly, I check it. Repeatedly, I check the hydrogen tanker, which is gradually worsening. Naturally, I neither want nor welcome the mothership. Like the clipper ship, it is contaminated, and I am besieged by it, often going to extreme lengths to block it, like the starship, which is senseless and irrational, like walking the plank on the pirate ship time after time, which invariably interferes with normal life. The problem is the pirate ship is dirty, avoiding the pirates or arranging the pirates until they are just right, saying their names out loud like Calico Jack or Redlegs Greaves, or washing the pirate ship again and again until it is clean like the Incredible Hulk, often for hours or days. This is the best way. Basically, the pirate ship is no good, like eating in the cafe of the unprotected cruiser, trying not to think about the ketch or the knar, trying not to think about the cough or the coke, especially the coke, going around and around the toilets on the survey vessel, going to great lengths to avoid the replenishment oiler. Though the replenishment oiler and the survey vessel are not related, I am besieged by them. Always doing something sinful, always poisoning the food on the troop ship, which is difficult to ignore, though nobody welcomes the troop ship. Bathing with the troops and hugging them, or jumping in front of the troops with the aim of hurting them. I fear I may be labelled. Turning for help to the reefer is no use, nor to the junk which interferes with normal life. I can't even throw away my oar-powered pram. Invariably, I return to it, moving it from place to place on the high seas where space is running out with the aircraft carrier on its way, trying not to think about it, nor the approaching dreadnought, texting the captain to turn off the gas because I am the captain of the pram and I'm not going ashore, even though the hydrogen tanker has gone right through me. Naturally, I made an emergency stop to brush my teeth with a sweeping and rolling motion, first the upper teeth, then the lower teeth, paying extra attention to the waterline and brushing my tongue too for fresher breath. I really got a feel for it. The hard to reach back teeth are easy to ignore, unlike the destroyer. Naturally, nobody welcomes it, nor the ghost ship emitting ghost light, drifting towards the true horizon. The problem is I am besieged by it, and the missing lifeboats I invariably return to, gripping them tightly and with all my hands washing them again and again. Two more of those. This one's called an optotypical poem, including Art Garfunkel. And it's got two epigraphs. The first is from a man called Nigel Farndale from the Daily Telegraph. I hear Art Garfunkel before I see him. And the second is from Art Garfunkel himself, from a little book of prose poems he wrote called Still Water. Why couldn't I be a goldsmith? To test if my eyes were working, I tried one day to look at Art Garfunkel. I wanted to see the light bend round him, the singer and sometimes actor, Art Garfunkel, who is not a songwriter and really only an eccentric anomaly, standing up there on American Bandstand in the clear light of day. I tried to look right at him as if he was a milky drink or just a bright plain surface. But as my eyes moved, the ellipsoid profile Art Garfunkel moved, and I couldn't see him anywhere. Rolling my eyes from side to side, I began to realize adult contemporary singer Art Garfunkel was a true anomaly. And because of his head, I couldn't look at him at all, or at the degree of tightness of his poorly defined arms, or at his small core region. And sooner or later, everybody realized Art Garfunkel only had approximate values in the observed spectrum, and even in invisible light could only ever be partially imagined singing Bright Eyes. I only wanted to look at Art Garfunkel. I didn't want to touch or even photograph his head of distant stare-shaped hair. If I could, I surely would have been destroyed by good binoculars, looking towards Garfunkel and then towards his smaller, hot companion Simon on American Bandstand. Surely it would have been like looking at a million standard candles or having a foreign object in my eye, or a real emergency like the instability of the jeans length of Art Garfunkel. It's not easy to conceptualize, but if A equals R plus G, where G is the greatest hits and R is critical length, only when we rephrase A as G does the gene's mass equal R. It's not easy to conceptualize. It's not easy to listen to Art Garfunkel sing "I Only Have Eyes for You" by the Flamingos when he doesn't know if it's cloudy or bright. He doesn't even know if he's in his garden or on a crowded avenue. Again, I think he must be collapsing into his cool companion Simon, who has no energy. I don't know why in ideal seeing conditions he wants to try to make him appear so far away. Perhaps it's because of the bridge in his head of troubled hair. Perhaps it's because in their youth, Simon and Garfunkel really were moths, notorious for eating clothing and flying towards the light. But I don't believe that Art Garfunkel is the largest moth in the world. I don't believe his smaller, dense companion flies only between June and July. Hello, darkness. Hello. If you say it over and over, Art Garfunkel turns into a luminous variable. I wouldn't exactly describe him as the sun. I wouldn't describe him as the moon. I was only trying to look at him to test my eyes by seeing the light curve round him, thinking maybe he'll direct his jets towards me now he is the darkest object in the universe. What is American Bandstand anyway? What are ideal seeing conditions? On any clear day, I definitely shouldn't try to look at Art Garfunkel through the giant Magellan telescope. I don't want the close-up strands of his sage or parsley hair to be the last thing I see. After all, I'm special and diffuse too with my solid state education and heart of gold. When I was once upon an English bandstand with my unaided eye, I couldn't work out the difference between Garfunkel and Simon. 1 minute, one of them was wobbling, the next the other one was dim and just an airy pattern 1,000 miles from home. Only in my dreams, Art Garfunkel is a new, bright planet requiring me to use a peep sight. Routinely looking at him through a peep sight in my dreams helps me to understand the attraction of his dusty legs, how widespread they are and how irregular. And even though there are sometimes 1,000 plateaus in his head of redistributed hair, everybody cried when on his difficult solo album, using rhyme like Tycho Brahe, Art Garfunkel said it's easy. We all need a little space and time to break a wahe. But secretly, I know everybody cried because he doesn't have any shoulders. Unlike his rigorous companion Simon, who is always all right in a rowing boat traveling to and from all-seater shows in the neighborhood, Art Garfunkel doesn't have any shoulders to lay his head on. I imagined leaning my shoulders on Art Garfunkel's true or false abduction. And I began to cry too, looking in the mirror at my own head of brilliant, obvious hair and the bulge of uncontrolled positive feedback all around it, rearranging my eyes to survive the bulge of being a poet's poet alone at a Simon and Garfunkel reunion and walking away from one whole revolution of American tune because Simon and Garfunkel are a folk rock duo and I am a poet's poet, like Edmund Spenser going up and down in the eyes of Keats back in the 21st century. All I can think of is the distance between the pupils of Art Garfunkel who don't want to look at any of my poems or at the light between them. No, Art Garfunkel, no. I couldn't be a goldsmith either, in whose time I am a jerk and your hands are shaking. Simply to repeat myself, your growing hands are shaking, but the eyes are mine. In each of these poems, one after another, I see your glowing hands are shaking. Thank you, Art Garfunkel, thank you. After all, the eyes are fine. And the last one from Latanoprost Variations. I mean, some of you heard this an awful lot, but I apologise for that, but I thought I'd read it out anyway because it never loses relevance. And that's the last poem in the book, a final poem with full stops, which has an epigraph. These deaths are not inevitable. The human cost of Fortress Europe from Amnesty International. Suicide. Suicide by drowning or suicide by hanging. Suicide by jumping off a bridge and died. Roma, died or killed. Died in a fire. Died jumping from a train and drowned. Reportedly, run over by a car reaching the Italian beach and drowned. Roma, drowned in the river trying to cross the border. No name. Found on a duck boat and found in a car park and found on a cucumber lorry and shot. Stowaway. Shot in the back. Shot in the head. Shot on a mountain way. No name. And died. Died or killed. And drowned. Drowned in the canal. Drowned in a small boat. Roma, after release, walked in front of a train and died. Died or killed. Died after falling from a window. Fell into the sea. Illegal worker. No name. Found dead in the desert. Asylum seeker. Died in a container fire. Roma. Rubber boat broke up. No name. Blown up in a minefield trying to cross the border and drowned. Miner, drowned while trying to swim across the river. Roma, stoned to death by traffickers. Killed, crushed by a truck and killed. Reportedly fell down in front of Spain and died or killed. Reportedly thrown overboard, missing, sans papier, missing, presumed drowned, smashed in a trash collector and suffocated in a sealed container and suffocated by a neck lock, suffocated eating money to avoid being robbed, and shot in the stomach during a police check, sans papier, died in an overcrowded boat, and died or killed and drowned, found in fishing nets and found by coast guards and found dead in an irrigation ditch, asylum seeker, killed by a roadside bomb, recovered from the sea, no name, Roma, jumped by Nazis outside a detention center and shot, jumped from a church tower, jumped from a train, jumped from a courthouse window, reportedly, and died or killed, died in Brussels airport, shot and buried by gendarmes, frozen in an aircraft wheel bay, Roma, frozen in a heavy sea, set fire to the bed and drowned in a small boat and drowned in a stranded boat, drowned in stormy waters, Roma, fell from the 5th floor, reaching the Italian beach, fell from a border fence and died or killed, died in care and died in custody and died while trying to cross to England, suicide, found dead, touching an electric cable, hanging in the shower, found dead in a bus shelter, and drowned, reportedly, in a drifting boat and in a dinghy, Roma, no name, found dead in a cargo ship, jumped, reportedly jumped off the bridge and died or killed, killed in a factory fire and killed on a freight train and killed in the middle of the road, asylum seeker, laid down in a prison and died, suffocated with a pillow, suffocated in a bus compartment, shot by Nazis wearing life jackets reaching the Italian beach and drowned, afraid of going, sans papier, afraid of going to the doctor, and died in a fall from a North Sea ferry, died or killed, died in the boot of a car, Roma, walking into Calais, set themselves on fire and drowned near Kos and drowned, giving birth and drowned in territorial waters and found in a small boat, in a garden, in a state of advanced decomposition, minor, tied him to her waist across the river and drowned, no names, died of brain damage in a refugee hostel, died or killed, stowaway, hit by a train and hit by the propeller of a motorboat and died, hit by a bus, died in a van, died after being left alone, Roma, eaten in the forest by wolves and drowned in the Aegean and drowned near Lampedusa, drowned in the channel of Otranto, reportedly hit by a police boat and died or killed by a racist cellmate and died after 14 days at sea, reportedly of cancer, in a street riot, reportedly near Heathrow, asylum seeker, died of thirst, denied interpreter, fearing deportation, died of thirst, died of bullet wounds, died of anxiety psychosis, and drowned in the Seine fleeing from police, drowned in the Rhine, drowned in the River Thames, found dead, Roma, found dead in the snow, found dead after 16 days at sea, ignored by NATO, no name, SOS ignored by NATO, no name, suicide, found dead, ignored by NATO, and died, SOS, died or killed, drowned, killed. Okay, moving on. A few poems, I think just to finish from organ music, which came out during lockdown in 2020. And what I want to read from this is just a few of the little, the slightly longer poems are kind of interspersed with these little, slightly smaller poems. They're kind of sonnet shaped, but they're all 19 lines long, and they're all called interludes, and they're kind of little, kind of fake biographies of English composers who, some of whom had something to do with the organ. This is all a book about the organ, you know, the kind of interlude. Knock, knock. Who's there, John Dowlands? Why, John Dowlands, you look rough. Rough in the rough that you're rough in. Oh, John Dowlands, we love your get-up. Comely John Dowlands, first among the evergreens. Now he is stalking me in my chamber. Go away from my window. Go, John Dowlands, go. Both your hands sound ridiculous. The King of Spain is uninteresting in your ingrown arms. Oh, ho, John Dowlands, the lights are on. Very likely this year you will not come again in your triumph. In his triumph, quickly John Dowlands drives through the continental lowlands. He is ornate at Taverner's party. He is longer than his long lute. In his triumph, Quickly John Dowlands drives through the continental ploughlands. John Dowlands, why the long lute? Ho, ho, homely John Dowlands. Ho, ho, lonely John Dowlands. I stuck an extra S on his name there. Interlude. Why, John Dunstable? I hardly know you. Can I borrow your memorable face? Your English countenance is quite rare. Oh, Constable, I have fallen for John Dunstable. In the 1440s, he is very forward. He is finished with Gloria, and he is finished with Carol, and I am finished with John Dunstable. Oh God, we are all Plantagenets. A Tudor is neither male nor female. Whoever is besieging the house of carpets, nobody painted their Burgundian kitchen. Why, John Dunstable, why? Because I was in my coat of arms in the burning house of Windsor. Embattled and Darnsetti, I left my shield in your ordinary extra field. And I lied in the ground in wavy armour, and I lied in the ground of Eton College, and I lied in the ground in armed corsets, and I lied in the ground on Dunstable Downs. No one's quite sure whether to pronounce his name John Dunstable or John Dunstable. But he's well worth listening to. Interlude. In my Orlando Gibbons fantasy, go Glenn Gould and do not whack the circle-bearded boys of the Lord of Salisbury. Going Glenn Gould straight returned, virginal and unorganistic. Feminine, the endings of Henrietta Maria, heretofore her kittens, thereupon Marie Antoinette. In the beginning, Orlando Gibbons came forth, rallying Glenn Gould in idiot mittens, like the boys of the Lord of Salisbury, in furious ermine, jerking in thy wrath. I'm sorry I cut off your boy hands of ancient origin. Only honourable men go with honourable men with arms, playing Renaissance tag up and down your silent mogue. Oh God, I'm it, or Orlando Gibbons or the Lord of Salisbury is it, from whose boys Glenn Gould hies via Canada of a room full of spies. Gee, farewell jerks, hallow sighs of the boy hands, of the boy bands, ancient or modern or revised. Interlude. Now we are all ruck positive or amoroso or bombard on chamade. Sounding the parley, everybody sank their jolly boats. Aye, in the beginning she leadeth me overboard with maximum pedals down to her ships of eve. Avast the sloops of war. Abandon ships, all ye who spied her tutti indicators, turning them over, and her row boats of oar, over her pianoforte, over her piss harmonica, the boy seaman and the men of Coventry, ahoy. Here she comes. Is she coming quietly or full of noise? Crow or low, go the eyes of the men of Coventry, wandering eyes, the wandering hands of men inland, whole cities looking at her galleys going, looking at her galleons gone. Tauran Tantara goes the Coventry man of the wives of the men of war. Goes my life, goes my wife. Those words like amoroso, bombard en chamade, crow or low, they're all types of organ stop, of which this book is full. Interlude. Now I'm dismissed by Christopher Tye, Jeremy Prin's favourite composer, apparently. Now I'm dismissed by Christopher Tye. Farewell, my good eye, my other eye is dumb, my dumb ears and nose and throat doctor said, Jesus, Chris. Pum-pum-pum. In a way, I bet you look good in a manger or toiling near the earth, touching my harp of gold. I was only saying, if only I hadn't, when I spake thus about your organs of Corti with such shaky hands, played my drum for you. For Dr. Tye, who is out of tune, is out of time and hurting me like, ouch, the book of smacks, or ouch, the smacks of the apostles. I was only playing for them my drum when they broke thus my sticks. Now I am dismissed, and together they into me did come. Pum-pum-pum. Oh, Dr. Tye, who are not listening. It's not Christmas. Why am I on my knees? My otolaryngologist never does say ah or cheese. This one features Klaus Wunderlich, an easy listening organist who didn't play the Hammond organ like I say here. He played another kind of organ called the Versi organ, but for some reason I left it out. When I think about the Hammond sounds of Klaus Wunderlich, I know I'm not really thinking about all kinds of everything. Even I know sometimes I don't think Dana or Julio Iglesias of Spain is the grooviest thing in the world. I wrote that which doesn't remind me of the covers of Klaus Wunderlich when Klaus Wunderlich hits again. Pow! Now I'm in love with Ipanema itself and the girls of Telefunken. I don't know what to do when Klaus Wunderlich hits. His difficult jackets, which make me swoon. In any front room at Hammond time in the afternoon, nobody knows what to do. The girls of Telefunken are listening to Oh, Forever and Ever, and Klaus Wunderlich hits again. Bam! It's over suddenly. Inside, outside, the sun is going up and down. Inside, Klaus Wunderlich carries on hitting anyway, only up to 9. The funny thing I can't think is which covers shinier, the organist's or mine. Two more. This one features some of the members of the jazz prog band Soft Machine. Sorry about that. Interlude. In this heat and out of tune, during the hosepipe band playing Esther's nose job on a Vox Continental, Mike Ratledge doesn't even have a fucking English water meter. Softly, Mike Ratledge, using the concise British alphabet to Robert Wyatt, I want to report a leak in 1973, but held in a queue, I'm progressively untitled. Again, he values my custom. Again, Hugh Hopper is using a sprinkler. About the empty watering cans of Elton Dean, thank you for calling the gentleman farmer. In England and Wales, my lawn's all yellow because of the day-long baths of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Instrumental in this heat, Mike Ratledge is on a Lowry Deluxe holiday. Why are you sleeping, Mike Ratledge? He isn't hardly on a holiday. He isn't even in this fucking heat. He's just the organist in a big beat combo. In the European Economic Area, playing Fletcher's Blemish, we did it, Mike Ratledge. Like United Utilities Water Limited, we did it again. Oh, why are you weeping? The last one, interlude. On John and James by Toots and the Maytals. When confusingly they sing John James went up or down to London town, I know it doesn't mean the poet John James. Among the girls, last time he went down in high shine vinyl. Now John James is just a memory, like an 18th century beta of bulls. John James on the organ of St. George's in the East. Everybody heard about the two King Ramesses. Nobody ever heard about the two John Jameses. On the A minor voluntary with Vivaldian energy, soon John James is rhyming in the back of my saloon. Like any Scar original, he's at home and abroad with the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not finger me in the angel or the harp. Like any junior Tory, thou shalt not Psyche and trim. From chimney to chimney, westward on the Cambridge line, I don't know either which red stripe's mine. The coolest one's the one in rippling blue, under heavy manners. Quickly, this John James revival's over too. Thanks very much.
Do you want to have a chat, or have you had enough?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. I mean, have you ever read this long before?
I did one a couple of weeks ago, but only because someone was ill. You couldn't make it, so yeah, I was forced into it. A bit like this.